My first day of paramedic clinicals, I was dispatched to a triple victim shooting on my first day. They tell you that clinicals are meant for learning, and they don't tell you that this lesson might be your first lesson in how to not fucking freeze when under stress. So we were originally called to a down and out, which most likely means in the late 90s, a heroin overdose. Now it would be fentanyl overdose. And which most likely means respiratory distress or dead. They could be dead, which, it's fine. That makes it, easier for everybody. But normally it's they're just breathing very slowly and you have to give them these drugs that wake them up and piss them off. And then they yell at you for giving them these drugs. And it's an ugly call. You do it all the time. There's nothing really exciting about it. And it's just kind of boring. But I remember this is my first paramedic clinical. Good. I'm going to ease into this. I've seen this 1,000 times before. Not on the street. I worked in the emergency department my whole my whole career, but mostly. I'll get to that in a minute. So we're on our way to this call, and then dispatch gets back on, and they say, "Engine." I was with the fire department, by the way, doing my clinicals because I had a connection. My cousin was the chief of the fire department, and I was able to get all these fancy clinicals. I'll probably cut that part out because it's completely fucking irrelevant. Nevertheless, we're on our way to this down and out heroin dude. Dispatch gets on and says, "Hey, redirect, go to this triple victim home invasion shooting. All of the victims are still alive." I have never, this is way beyond anything I've ever been involved with in my entire life. And that's when the truck got kind of quiet. Because after this type of radio call, no one wants to be the person that says anything because they're just going to look stupid. And everyone was totally quiet. You just put on the lights and sirens and you just start going. And then the bosses start giving directions on who's going to do what. So we get cleared. We go in, and I walk in first, and there's blood everywhere. It looked exact like imagine what a triple victim uh, shooting, imagine it in your head, and that's exactly what it looked like. There was shell casings all over the place. It smelled. There was furniture overturned, like the house had tried to fight back somehow. There was a smell of like blood and ammonia and like a lemon scented smell, like and metal and gunpowder. But it kind of I kind of felt like maybe the dude that did the shooting like tried to clean up or something beforehand, which is not a fucking good sign, right? Inside, there's three people laying on the floor: daughter, father, mother, covered in blood. The daughter has three gunshot wounds in her face, forming like a triangle, relatively close together. But she's looking right at me, talking, which is like not something you really expect to have happen to someone who's just been shot three times and have bullets and has bullets in her face. The dad, he's not too conversational because he's gurgling blood and blood's shooting out of his mouth, which is very likely the result of like his lungs losing the argument with the bullet. Pneumothorax, hemopneumothorax, a bunch of fancy medical terms, cardiac tamponade, whatever it was, meaning that either your lungs or your heart or both are totally fucked up. You need to get out of that situation and get to an operating room. And he's just gasping, and there's like literally blood pouring out of his mouth. It's like that wet bubbling sound when the lungs are trying to like drown themselves. And that's where my brain went blank for a little about half a second because I realized I'm the lead dude on this. I'm the closest person to him because I went in first, and nobody's there to like tap me out and say, step back. There's three of us, and there's three patients at this point. So I drop to my knees and I start doing all the shit I need to do to prepare to intubate this guy, which is irrelevant what it is right now. So I'm doing all the shit that I need to do. I think actually at this point I'm trying to start an IV or someone's putting in an airway. Nevertheless, we're doing all this different stuff. And this cop comes up to me and he taps me on the shoulder and he goes, "Hey, Glass, I'm we're not really sure exactly 100% where the shooter is." And that sentence did not really help my performance of what I was doing much at all. But like, so now what I'm doing is I'm trying to, like intubate this guy and in a house where the shooter could be in the vicinity. And it's not like he's going to like come back right at that moment, but actually, how do I know? Obviously this dude's a fucking psychopath. And so like every sound I heard freaked me out. Every shadow like I thought was like the dude. The mom is at this point is to my right. And the daughter's over here to my left now. And she's still talking, and I'll explain about what she said in a minute. The mom is there. She's breathing. Her skin is pink and cold and clammy. But she's like eerily calm. Like her brain hasn't really caught up to what's happening yet. In movies, they call that shock. In the medical world, shock is a different thing. But she's just like, just alive, but not really understanding what's happening. The daughter, meanwhile, someone comes and takes over what I'm doing with this guy for some reason, I forget why, and I have to go talk to the daughter and do some things with her. And she starts apologizing to me for, she's like, "I'm sorry I'm bleeding on your boots," which is a very bizarre thing to have happen. Like, she's being polite to me. And I tell her it's okay. I was like, "These aren't my boots." And she laughed, not laughing like because it was funny, but it was more of like a reflex. Anyway, so she starts to tell me what happened, or tell the cops what had happened. And what had happened was some dude came through the garage, the open garage door, the big door that the cars go through. He didn't say a word. He walked in and just started shooting people. The father went for his shotgun. The father went for the father's shotgun, turned it on the guy. The guy took the shotgun from the father and turned and shot the father in the chest with the shotgun, which explains why the father was so fucked up and his, lungs were collapsing. But the daughter and the mom weren't as fucked up because they got shot with the dude's gun, which is what ended up getting the guy arrested in the first place because he had this bizarre caliber gun that is very rare, and they traced it back to him, which coincidentally I have a story about because I was also involved in that situation with my other job that I had at that time in the operating room. If you want to hear that story, let me know in the comments. Or if you want the next story to be the one about the guy getting run over by a train, one of those two, let me know. Nevertheless, the daughter is explaining what happened. The guy comes in, shoots everybody, shoots the father with his own gun. It started to kind of freak me out that she was apologizing left and right because it started to make us all realize that we think that her thinking is becoming she's becoming altered in her mental status. She's developing an altered mental status, which is a sign of fucking big problems, right? So they pack up the father. Other people show up. Other EMS people. They pack up the father. They take him. I wish I could remember why I didn't stay with him, but this was 25 years ago. I was like 25 years old. And so I'm with the daughter, and she looks at me and she was like, "Am I going to die?" Which is never a question, which if it had been 3 or 4 minutes earlier, I was like, probably not at this exact moment. But now that she was having altered mental status, like, shit, this girl's fucked up. But We pack up everyone, and as I'm leaving, I noticed something. I noticed that the garage door was still open, which meant that like it was still wide open, which and the lights on and it was empty. And I'm wondering if the dude stole the car or not. But it also kind of means that like maybe he didn't really leave in a hurry. But that's the end of the story. Oh, all three of them lived. They all lived. I don't remember what happened with the father or how fucked up he was after this whole thing. I don't really follow up with people after any of this, but I do know that they all lived, and I do know what happened to the shooter. That's actually really the end of the story. That was my first clinical in paramedic school. So, thanks for watching. Bye.